Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back again for another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And I have so been looking forward to this one. Today, we have Mary Catherine Jones, who's the owner and executive producer at the Audiobook Experience at Voice Over Vermont, an award-winning boutique audiobook recording and production studio. She delights in working with authors to bring their stories into the world, either using their voices or finding the perfect narrator for their audiobook. And she was also a panelist on our Voices Carry Wisdom panel in January. So if you have not watched that, or you want to watch it again, I'll put the links in the comments after the interview. If you have any questions, ideas, thoughts, please chime in. If you're watching on the replay, tag us in the comments, and we'll come back and keep the conversation going. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
I know you were such a big hit on the panel. I know that this is going to be such a great interview, and I want to start with what happens when an author puts their voice to story. Like, what's the shift from having a book to it now being audible, the voice?
There's a shift and a change in so many different aspects. I don't even know where to start. The first is that they're bringing literally their voice into the world and putting their voice to this book that they've written with their words. They're opening themselves up to a wider audience because more and more people will only read with their ears. It's a industry that's growing double digits every year for the last 10 years. I know because I just put together a presentation all about it. So they're taking advantage of a growth in that market. But more importantly, it's almost like they are re-embodying the work that they have written. So many times, especially when I'm working with authors of memoir, they say it was one process to write the book. It's yet another to read it, to literally tell your story aloud, can sometimes be very, very moving. Sometimes, I've got Kleenex here in the studio, just for that reason, and it just brings another dimension to the stories that they've written.
Yeah, when I work with authors, they feel pressured that they need to do the audiobook at the same time that they're publishing. And I discourage them if they're feeling pressured by that, and just say do it at another time where you could really be in that experience. Do you agree with that?
So I do agree with that, with a caveat. And it also depends on what their goals are. It depends on what their timeline is. Making an audiobook is very time intensive and labor intensive. And if you've just come off finishing your manuscript and you're depleted of energy and you are going to be the narrator, that's not going to be the right time for you to narrate it. It's also not an inexpensive process. And sometimes the budget precludes having that happen. However, in the ideal world of all ideal worlds, if you're planning to have your book available in audio, it's lovely if you can arrange to have that available at the time of launch, only because when you launch your book, that's when you're putting the most publicity and marketing dollars behind it. And so you're going to be getting the word out far and wide. And that's when you're more likely to reach an audience that may wish to listen to the audio. Now you can say, oh, the audio is coming in 6 months, and maybe they'll bookmark it and they'll come back to it. But it's that you lose that potential sale at the time of launch. So it's not a way to pressure, but it is if you finished a book and it's rolling out in a year or in 9 months, and you've got time to create the audiobook, there are reasons to do that.
Yeah.
On the other side, if you wait until that time is right, the budget is right, and the timeline for your ability to record is right, then you do have an opportunity to do basically another soft relaunch. And you have some new news. You've got a reason to talk about it. The main thing is, just like with launching your book, have a marketing plan.
Yeah.
Do something. If you've got something new, then shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's typically like when I work with authors, I extend it out beyond the launch. I would prefer to work with them after the launch, actually.
Right.
Dealing with Amazon is not fun.
Oh my gosh, it's
And that's the other thing too, is like how can you go from like what I have noticed in the whole process, the whole ecosystem of launching a book is there's that moment where as the author you need to, you're holding every piece together. Even if you're working with a publisher, it doesn't matter. This is your baby, right? You're holding all the pieces together. And then there's that line where you have to hand it over to Amazon and you have control over absolutely nothing. And that's Sophie's choice moment right there.
right. Well, and again, that's where learning about additional distribution options
Hmm.
is really good.
Yeah.
I think that for most mere mortals who are
Mhm.
also authors, you can't cut Amazon out of the equation, but
No,
you don't have to play solely in their universe.
no,
Um,
not at all.
and there's a hybrid way now. The thing that Amazon, of course, wants you to do, whether it's with a print or ebook or an audiobook, is to have an exclusive with them. That
Hmm.
makes them very happy. And so to reward that, they give you all sorts of, promotional codes and bells and whistles and tips and tricks and ways you can make your book a bestseller, if all your friends buy it at 11:59,
Hmm.
p.m. or something like that. Um, and that's legit. It does adjust the algorithm so that your book is higher on the charts, and that's fine. But if you want your book available in the retail market, in bookstores, if you want it available particularly for audiobooks in the library market,
Hmm.
you don't want to limit it to just Amazon. However, what you can do is start with Amazon and do an Amazon 6-month exclusive, and then ask them in writing. You have to change it, and then you can go back and you can pick a wider distribution platform and reach those secondary markets.
Well, that's a great strategy. That's a great strategy. And if you're self-publishing, you need to have your own Ingram accounts and you need to own your ISBNs. Don't
Yes.
buy them from Amazon. um, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but
Oh,
it's just an opportunity to, anytime I have an opportunity to tell people to buy their own ISBNs, I'm on it.
absolutely, absolutely. It makes sense for so many reasons, and I think the main one is we don't know what's going to happen with platforms as they change and shift and sell and be resold and bought, and all of a sudden, we've all had that moment where, "Wait, what do you mean my software doesn't work anymore?" you know, you really
Yeah,
don't want to have that with your book.
no,
So as much control
no.
as you can retain, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get out of the weeds of
Let's
Amazon.
get out of that rabbit hole.
Let's
Agreed.
dig out. So, all right, I have a question for you. If you could help any author, dead or alive, bring their book to life, who would it be and why?
Actually, I know exactly who I
Mhm.
would love to bring their book to life as an audiobook. It may actually already exist as an audiobook, but we're going to pretend
But
that
we're
it
gonna, yeah, we don't
that
care
it
about
doesn't exist.
that.
Um, and I'm trying to remember her first name, which is terrible. I think it's Abigail, but it is it's a book that was written. It's actually a collection of letters between Benjamin Franklin and his sister, and it's all of his sister's letters. And throughout the course of the book, and this is nonfiction; these are real letters. What you see is this woman who had tremendous potential,
Mhm.
tremendous wit and intellect and everything that her brother had, except that she was not a male. And so you see this trajectory where her brother goes off and becomes ambassador to France and
Yeah,
helps
he
the
becomes
country
Benjamin Franklin.
and does all that kind of thing. And she is stuck behind,
Yeah,
dutifully, but
yeah.
she's taking care of the kids, and then like some her sister's kids, and then her parents, and then some other family where the mother dies. So like she's just all she's doing is caregiving,
Mhm.
and she's not embittered in her letters, but it's just that's the way it is, and she's someone who deserves a much bigger platform and a much bigger voice.
What's the title of the book?
I will email it to you.
Okay.
It's on. It is the. It's on my shelf, and
Mhm.
I can't for the life of me think of the name of it. But it may come to me before the end of our talk.
Well, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. That would really be
What
amazing.
about you, Donna? I mean, who's an author that, dead or alive, that you would love to help and shepherd them through this
Well,
whole process?
the book would be A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was like such a part of my childhood. We had cousins that lived in Croton in Westchester County, actually very close to where I live now. But I grew up in Brooklyn. This was basically Canada, you know. And they had a room in their house which was like right on this little river where I actually go kayaking now. And they had this room that was it was only windows and bookshelves, and then couches around the perimeter of the windows. And I sat in that room and I read Little Women. Not Little I read Little Women there too, but I read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn there.
Those memories just
Yeah.
they stay and stay. We were talking before you started recording about other books, and for me, I think about Madeline L'Engle, A Wrinkle in Time, and
Mhm.
how that just I had been reading, plenty before then, but that one that brought me to literally a whole new world, right?
Yeah.
And I I can just remember where I was, in the backyard. It's 95 degrees. It's August. I'm probably being eaten alive by mosquitoes, and I'm completely immersed in this other
Mhm.
world.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, maybe it's because we didn't have many other forms of entertainment back then.
Mhm.
Um, but I still get wrapped up in my books, and, I have them all around me, and, they're tagged and they're written in, and, like I know what I need for whatever. Often, I mean, I'm more in the nonfiction business related, genre these days, but I keep saying I'm gonna just take a week off and, like, go someplace and read fiction books because I don't get to do that very often.
I think that's the appeal for me of a beach vacation.
Mhm.
I've only had one in the last 30 years, but I did do a lot of reading.
Yeah.
It was really great. And if I didn't have these pesky small children, I would have had even more.
I only have an aging cat now. My
Right,
pesky
exactly.
child
Now's the
is
time.
gone. He's flown.
Now is the time.
Now is the time. I maybe I'm gonna have to reach out for some book recommendations. So, like, do you have, a favorite type of book to work with? Like, when clients come in, do you prefer any type of genre?
I think memoir is the one that I love the most.
Mhm,
And that's because it gives an opportunity to really bring the true author voice into a project. And also, I get to learn some really wonderful aspects of that person's life. I mean, by the time we're finished, I'm like, well, what happened to Aunt Joe? I don't understand. So, we're really caught up. But also, I do love working with thought leadership. Anything where I'm
mhm,
working directly with the author and their voice. That's my magic. Um, I also I enjoy casting for
mhm,
books of fiction and all of that. And I have wonderful people that I work with, and we create these wonderful audiobooks. Um, but I'm not working as intimately with the author, so it's a different
mhm,
experience.
mhm. Yeah, and, talk a little bit about that experience because you've created something something very much like a unicorn, haven't you?
Well, I'm I'm fortunate in that I live in Vermont, and Vermont is a place that a lot of people love to visit, even if they haven't. And so, when given the opportunity to come here and work with me in the studio, a lot of people love that idea. I do work with people remotely. I find studios, partner studios, and can dial in direct. We can still work, closely together. But there's much more pressure of, okay, now we're also paying for studio time. So
Mhm.
literally every minute we can't
Mhm.
really chit chat.
Yeah.
Whereas when people come here, it's as much, at least for me, about bringing hospitality to the process as well as the work of doing the recording. And so we get to know each other, and then we start the recording. I have a whole bunch of warm-ups that I'll put people through. I'm looking around I'm in my studio right now. I don't have my cork with me. I must have taken it out, but we we play around with mouth warm-up exercises, um,
Mhm.
and record for about an hour at a time. Take a
Mhm.
quick break, and then back in until everything's done.
And how long does it typically take to record a book? An average size book, like 200 or so pages.
So for me, in my world, it's all about word count,
Mhm.
because 250 pages it could be 40,000 words, and it could be
Mhm.
80,000 words. How small is the is the font?
Yeah, how
Um,
is the font?
so if you're talking about kind of a typical memoir, let's call it 40,000 words. For
Mhm.
that, for the recording bit, I would schedule 12 hours of recording, plus a
Mhm.
little bit more like the last day so that we can do what we call pickups for any errors that we didn't
Mhm.
catch during the recording process. Um,
Mhm.
but something like that, that's 12 hours of recording. That's 2 6-hour days. I don't generally record more than that, unless
Mhm.
absolutely necessary. Um, and like I said, then a couple hours for pickups on the third day. So that's
Mhm.
about how long. And then it'll take another 2 to 3 weeks after the last day of recording for a book of that size to be gone through and going through post production, the editing and the file splitting and mastering.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes a little more, sometimes a little bit less. I don't want to overpromise.
Mhm.
Under promise and over deliver is what I
Mhm.
try to do.
That's a good practice to have. And, so many people, 'cause I worked with a lot of authors over the years, and they have a reluctance or a kind of bad taste in their mouth to do an audiobook. Um, like, what's the experience of when they realize, "Wow, this isn't so bad?"
Oh, that happens. I have only had one person in the last 10 years who happened to be in town, and he was leaning towards hiring a professional narrator. But he said, "Oh, let me give it a shot." So we put him in the booth. His
Mhm.
book was about the history of steel.
Mhm.
Um, and he was in here about 5 minutes, and he's like, "Nope, I'm hiring a narrator."
Well, thankfully, he was only in there for 5 minutes.
No, know thyself. But this was, and again, he happened to be in town. It's not like he'd
Mhm.
flown out to do that. Um, but almost, well, really, except for him, every other person has said, "Oh, I thought this was going to be so intimidating. I
Yeah,
thought this was going to be so hard," and it's really not.
yeah.
And I like to think that one of the reasons it's not is because you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I I have been a narrator for the last 20 years. So I've made every single mistake that you make. And so I literally hear when somebody is at the mic and then they turn away just like a fraction of an inch. I hear
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And without someone to say, "Oh, let's get that again. It sounds like you
Mhm.
turned away." And they're always like, "What? How can you hear that?" Well, it's my job.
Mhm.
But otherwise, you'd have that baked into the mix, and then you have to go back and you have to fix it, or somebody
Mhm.
who's maybe rubbing on their clothes, and there's a
Mhm.
sound. We gotta stop. But they don't have to worry about that. All they
Yeah.
have to do is tell their story.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's gotta be, I mean, when I first met you and I started to, look into what you do and how you do it, I was like, "Oh, what a gift this is." I mean, because how many people it's like go sit in their closet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a lot of work. But for me, the joy of hearing stories and working with authors
Mhm.
is it's worth everything. Um, really.
I feel the same way.
Yep.
I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like I'm like part of something bigger than me every time I can work with an author.
Right. Right. Exactly. And you're helping. It's like being a midwife.
Yeah, it really is. It is. I mean, like when I have people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this book and I'm gonna write it in 6 weeks and then it's gonna be edited in 6 weeks." And I'm like, "Uh-huh. Mhm, mhm. Let me see. Let me look at that watch." And then they tell me the day that they think they're gonna launch, and I just sit there and I smile and I listen, and then I'm like, "Okay, you wanna add a year to that?"
Oh, I've had authors who have come to me and they are so fired up to go ahead and start casting, and their book isn't finished.
Yeah,
Like, I I will be happy
yeah,
to cast for this book when
and
all the words that you want to say are
are
in the
done
order in which you want them to appear, and there's not going to be more changes.
and are still there.
Exactly, exactly. Then we will talk about casting.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've been working with authors probably since 2010, and
Okay.
every couple of years, I need to take a break
Yeah,
because it's kinda like parenting.
right. So what do you do when you take a break?
Well, I work on so many other things,
Right.
so, I just step away from working with authors for a little bit, but, I mean, because basically what I'm helping people do is become really visible to the people they wanna connect with. So, there's all types of communication involved with that. And, sometimes that could be taking your book and turning it into 2 years worth of content.
Right. And that's becoming so much more important, and
Yeah.
that's why listening to many of the interviews that you do,
Mhm,
following other people about marketing is not my happy place,
mhm,
um, but I understand just like it isn't for many authors, right?
mhm.
But I understand the importance of it, and so following those bits of advice and seeing how that's done and being able, without saying, "I'll do it," but to say, "Hey, you should think about this," or maybe
Yeah,
you can work with this person to make that happen if that's the trajectory you're on, is
yeah,
really, really helpful because it's about helping them.
yeah, I think I have this n right behind me, let me see. Mhm. No, I must have moved it. I've done a little reorganization of my books, but I have, a book from one of my clients from years ago that I keep behind me, and it's got, like, a whole color-coded system of tabs in there. And I went through her entire book and created, like, 2 years of marketing. It was blogs and social and emails and speaking topics and presentations, everything, the whole thing from her
Because it's
book.
all there.
It's
She's
all
already
there.
done that work,
It's all there. And
and
that's kind of
I remembered the name of the book,
um,
the book that of, the book that I said that I wanted to record.
oh, okay.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm
That's
so sorry, but it
okay.
came to me, and I'm gonna lose it again. It's The Book of Ages.
Okay.
That's the name of it, and it's written by Jill Lepore, or compiled, I guess. I knew it would come to me. It was swimming.
Okay, good. I'll put that in the chat when we're done. Yeah, but that's one of the things that I love to do more than anything because I can just take something and I love to turn things into other things. So I feel like a magician.
That's wonderful. Takes a lot of time, though.
A lot less with AI.
That's true. That is true. We could get on a whole conversation about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have mixed feelings. I do too. I do
I have
too.
I have mixed feelings, but I understand the value
Yeah.
for a lot of it. And we it's that's the way it always is. It's something is lost and something is gained.
Yes,
And
exactly.
hopefully we don't we don't lose too much of the humanness.
Well, this is the thing that I've been kind of hinged upon recently is that people that have good intentions really need to be in there, because
Right,
otherwise it's only gonna be the people with bad intentions, and that will be awful.
right, right, absolutely agreed.
That's what wakes me up at night.
Well, we don't want that.
No, 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 but I do have an ongoing chat with my, like, little AI buddy with dream analysis, which has been fascinating.
Oh, I haven't heard. I didn't realize that was an application, but of course it is.
It's not, you can do anything.
That's it did help me outline a presentation,
Mhm,
which was really helpful because I had all the content, but I needed a
mhm,
scaffold, and it gave
mhm.
me the scaffold, and I was like, "Ah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay, got it."
yeah, and then your brain's available for other things.
Right, that's
Yeah,
right.
so, yeah, I really, I love to find unique ways to use this.
Well, one thing that it did because, when I was in sort of the office workplace, when I was in publishing back in the early '90s, this is literally pre-internet, and, I was using Excel, but just at a very basic
Basic.
level, and, we didn't know how to do all these different things, and now everybody seems like you need to know everything, and I had to this was for that presentation I was putting together on the growth of audiobook sales, right? I just needed to create a bar chart. Do
Mhm.
you think I could cut out like things and take a picture, right? I
You're
was
gluing it to your
That's
screen.
what I'm saying, like, this is where I am. So I asked ChatGPT, "How do I create a bar chart?" And it walked me through and, like, told me how to do it in Excel and then turn that into a bar chart, which I'm sure everybody listening is like, "Really?" But yeah, really. Okay. That's not my playground, but I did it. So,
Just another tool.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it saved you how much time?
Oh, well, time and also because I've been doing so many more presentations, which is wonderful, um, I've had to create all these different PowerPoints, which again, not really my wheelhouse. So initially I was working with my designer who is fantastic, but it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I can't afford to keep hiring her to like make these tweaks and figure out how to do the bar chart and everything. So
Mhm,
I'm um I'm saving time. I am learning a new skill,
mhm.
and saving her for the big things that will
Yeah,
fully engage her.
yeah, yeah. It's changing the way we work,
Mhm.
and, I'm a big believer in we all really need to just put our hands on the keyboard and learn how to use the tools because
Sure.
it's not going away.
That's right.
It's just not going away, and we can't rely on somebody to build something on the back end that we could hit a button and use for 2 reasons. 1, these people are not software developers.
Right.
That's the other thing that wakes me up in the middle of the night. And 2, they're making an assumption, they're building this based on an assumption they're making about what you need.
Right.
When I have the best experiences with these tools is when I learn something that I had no idea even existed, and it takes me down a different direction, and when somebody else is making those assumptions for you on the back end, you lose that.
Right. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So it's very exciting time. I mean, some days it scares me, and some days I'm just, like, over the moon excited about it.
Right.
There's no middle ground.
Right.
Oh, goodness. So, I have a question for you.
Yes.
In the information that you provided to me, one of the questions that I ask is, "Who inspires you and why?" And you said that your mom inspires you.
Yes.
How has that factored into what you've done, what you've created?
So there's a picture of my mom, on my desk. I
Mhm,
look at it every day. She passed 20 plus years ago, so she was 63, had just turned. Um, and I think of her because she raised our family of 4 kids. I was the oldest, 4 kids in 5 years. God bless her. Um, and, in the early '70s, my father left, And so she was on her own and had to figure it out, and entered the workforce at a time where it was not as common as it is now. And she ended up starting a couple of businesses and figuring it out on her own. And I feel that she would be proud
Mm-hmm.
of what I do. And that gives me a great deal of pleasure that I've been able to not so much follow in her footsteps, but to create a business that is in flow with my life, which I
Mm-hmm.
know is her priority as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got some crossover here. I also come from 4 children, single mom, dad that left basically when I was born.
Mhm.
My middle name is his girlfriend's name.
My,
Yeah. And my mom went across the street to the supermarket and got a job packing
yeah,
candy in the candy aisle at Walbaum's. And let me see, I don't know if I could show you from here, but you see that woman in the back in that framed
I
picture?
do.
That's Julia Walbaum.
Wow.
She was the owner of the supermarket, and she was also a single mom because her and her husband started the supermarket in the late 40s, and he passed away shortly thereafter. And she kept it going and turned it into an empire. But she took my mother under her wing and made sure that we were all taken care of. So
Wow.
we all have a picture of Julia in our house.
That's that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So yes, my mom inspires me, and she also was wonderful at reading us stories. I can still picture her rendition of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet meet a heffalump. That was a pretty good rendition, I got to say.
Yeah, reading was definitely pushed in my house too. And yeah, there's something to being raised by those single moms.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So then you were the youngest of four,
Oh
is that
no,
right?
somehow my father came back and have a younger brother.
Oh
Don't
my
know
God.
about
Well,
that.
okay. Well, moms have their reasons.
He wasn't around very long.
Wow. Yeah. My father left when my youngest sister was born,
Mhm.
or just a few months afterwards. So, yeah, she was
Yeah,
the let's save the marriage baby, and didn't quite work.
yeah, yeah. I think my mom had 2 "Let's save the marriage" babies. But that was a thing.
Yeah, it was. It was. It was a
Yeah,
different time. I mean, that's part of why the book that I mentioned, that the Book of Ages, when you just when you think about ordinary people's lives, it's not
yeah.
limited to women, but
Mhm.
that's a focus of mine right now. But that was her ordinary day. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary
Yeah,
about her life, except that it was completely out of, like, how could we even fathom that?
mhm,
And I think about our parents, again, figuring this out in the
yeah,
70s, like, how could that be a thing? How did they survive? Because it's so alien, even though it was what we grew up with. And what will our
mm,
kids be saying about us?
yeah. I mean, like, I remember I wrote a story about this, it's on my Substack, but I remember when my mom got a credit card. It was a Corvette's credit card, and Corvette's was a department store in, like, the Northeast, and, she took a car service to Corvette's to go Christmas shopping, which we didn't have a car, and taking a car service was above, like, that's like calling a limousine, right?
Right.
Taking a private jet these days. But, she didn't take the 4 buses it would have taken to get there, and she went Christmas shopping, and she came home, and she woke me up, and she wanted me to help her wrap all the gifts because I loved wrapping gifts, and she was so excited about that credit card because she couldn't have one before.
Right. Right. And this is something that our generation, when I think about that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up, we came of age at a time where it was nothing to, apply for a credit card. There was no hesitation. I mean, you may or may not get it, but
Mhm.
it was not, oh, you can't because you're a woman. unless you have a husband or a parent co-sign.
Mhm. Well, when I bought my first car, the car was like $6,000,
Right.
and I had to have my uncle, who I hadn't seen in years, co-sign the loan. I had to go, like, take the subway to his office and ask him. It was one of the most demeaning moments of my life because we had absolutely no relationship, and I had to go ask him to co-sign a loan because I couldn't get one without a man co-signing it.
Oh my gosh.
And that was like 1978, 80, somewhere around there.
Wow.
It's not that long ago, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we need to fight for our rights.
We do.
Because I'm not going back there. My uncle's dead.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Ah,
Okay, so this has been amazing. I love talking to you every time we have the opportunity, so
oh,
we
I feel
must
the
do
same
this more often. And I would love to come be a fly on the wall in your studio in the woods in Vermont.
Someday. Someday. That would be amazing.
Wow.
That would be amazing.
My books will get written one day, and they'll need audio,
Yes, they
and
will.
they'll need my voice, and they're only going in your hands.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I like to wrap these up with a wisdom bomb. What do you want people to know? What's something small and actionable they could take with them?
Something small and actionable that they can take with them is, if you are going to give a speech, to first of all look it over before you give it. But I would not recommend actually practicing. I mean, maybe in the weeks coming up, you can practice your cadence and your delivery and all of that. But when it comes to like the morning of, have it printed out, look at it, mouth the words, but don't actually say them, so that your brain is basically primed to give that delivery. And that's going to help your whole process go a lot more smoothly.
Wow, that's amazing. Never heard that before. That's really good advice. I could see where that would like really work.
Yep. No, it really, the brain, it just helps the brain kind of get over itself when you're up there.
That's amazing. Thank you. And please, you can find her at voiceoververmont.com and not so much on social. So go over to her website.
I do what I can. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, but I'm not there often. I'm usually
Or maybe just push her on LinkedIn so she
there. You
comes
go.
out more often to play. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will be back next week with another wonderful interview. I think you were interview 116.
Oh wow, you've done
Yes.
so much. That's
Scrolling.
amazing. Thank you.
I love doing this. This is absolutely my favorite day of the week.
Wonderful. Well, today is my favorite day too.
Good, good, good. Okay, we will be back next week with more. If you have questions, comments, ideas, thoughts, put them in the chat, tag us, and we'll respond. Have a
Absolutely.
great have a great Wednesday, everybody.